Do you believe the planting window has already closed for the year? You might want to rethink that right away. While folks next door are watching their yards dry up and calling it quits, you have the chance to create the absolute best autumn display they will ever lay eyes on. And I am going to let you in on a little secret they are missing. We are not talking about weak flowers that show up once and vanish. We are talking about hardy perennials that return larger, tougher, and much more gorgeous year after year. A lot of folks make a massive error. They put everything in the dirt during spring, soak up a couple of months of beauty, and by the time August rolls around, they have mentally packed it in for the year. But what if I shared that the end of July and August is actually the perfect window to put some of the most amazing perennials in the ground? These are survivors that mock the summer heat, do well in tough spots, and give you jaw-dropping autumn flowers right when everything else is dying back. Today, I am going to walk you through 12 perennials that will completely shift how you view late summer yard work. Forget your standard spring blooms. These are the showstoppers, the tough guys, the ones that wake up just as the rest are going to sleep. And the greatest thing? Put them in the dirt today, and they will give you bright shades all the way through October, November, and sometimes even into the early winter months. Welcome back. This is the place where we work smarter, not harder, out in the yard. I am here to show you that the late summer heat is not the finish line. It is a brand new chance to make some magic happen outside. Let's kick things off with plant number 1, the black-eyed Susan, your bright yellow garden champion. Let me explain exactly why this one earns the top spot for anyone digging in the dirt late in the year. When I put these stunners in the ground half a decade ago, I was completely unaware I was about to see one of the most dependable plants on Earth. Just imagine this. It looks like pure sunshine trapped in a flower, putting on a show non-stop from the day it hits the soil until the first heavy freeze. These are not fussy plants that need you to baby them. They are tough fighters that actually power up when the heat turns on. While the folks next door have wilting pots, your black-eyed Susans will be standing proud, shooting out bloom after bloom as if they run on pure sunlight. Those daisy-shaped petals wrapping around dark chocolate middles give you a bold look that literally makes people stop walking. I have actually had friends ask me if I stuck fake flowers in the ground because it is hard to believe a real plant can look that flawless in the blazing heat. And this is the part I love the most. Once they settle in, they handle dry spells like a champ. That means you do less watering and get more time to sit back and look at that bright yellow show. But it gets even better. When autumn rolls around and the rest of the yard looks tired, these winners just refuse to quit. They will keep showing off right through September, October, and often well into November. It feels like throwing a little party every single time you walk out the back door. Moving on to number 2, we have Russian sage, which is basically a dreamy purple cloud. This beauty is like pure art blowing in the wind. The very first time I spotted this at a buddy's house, I honestly thought a soft purple mist had grown out of the ground. The way the stems sway when a breeze rolls by is totally captivating, almost like watching a dancer right there in your flower bed. Those tall, graceful spikes of soft purple-blue blooms add this amazing height that turns any basic yard into a showplace. And when I tell you they love the heat, I mean they truly crave it. The warmer the sun gets, the sweeter they smell. Just lightly touching those silver leaves lets out this fantastic earthy scent that makes you feel like you are standing in the Mediterranean. What makes Russian sage such a winner for late planting is how tough it is. This plant shrugs off dry weather, does just fine in bad dirt, and honestly looks better if you ignore it a little bit. It is like it was made exactly for busy folks who want a huge payoff without the hard work. And speaking of a big payoff, these can grow 3 to 4 feet high, making an awesome background for smaller flowers, while pulling in massive groups of bees and butterflies. I put mine in the dirt during August about 3 years back, and by the time October hit, it looked like it had lived there for a decade. The trick is that Russian sage actually likes finding a new home when it is hot outside. It gives the roots plenty of time to dig deep before the cold weather hits, all while giving you that amazing autumn color. Our third pick is the purple coneflower. If you are looking to build a hotspot for bugs and birds, this is your winning ticket. Putting these in the ground is like throwing the best backyard bash in the neighborhood. Hummingbirds, bees, butterflies, and finches will all show up to party. Now, the really cool thing about the newer types of coneflowers is that they are not only purple anymore. You can find them in bright orange, coral, yellow, white, and even those fluffy double kinds that look like little pom-poms. But to me, that traditional purple with the big bronze bump in the middle is still the absolute ruler of the yard. What makes them so great for planting right now is how well they handle a scorcher. While the rest of your yard is giving up in the August sun, coneflowers are just warming up. They actually push out more blooms and grow thicker stems when it gets really hot. And here is a fun little extra. The dried seed bumps that stick around after the petals fall off look amazing and give hungry birds a snack all winter. I still smile thinking about the first time I put coneflowers in the dirt in late July. The lady next door thought I had lost my mind. She asked me why anyone would plant in that kind of heat. But when September came and her yard was completely brown and exhausted, mine was full of bright shades and buzzing wings. She has been begging me for a cutting ever since. The absolute best thing about coneflowers is that they are basically bulletproof once they get comfortable. Dry dirt? They can take it. Terrible soil? Not an issue. Ignoring them? They love it. It is like having the best, most easygoing buddy right there in your flower bed. They are always dependable, always present, and always stunning. Coming in at number 4 is Threadleaf Coreopsis. This little blooming engine will completely change your mind about what you can pull off late in the season. When I mention to folks that this one flowers non-stop from the day it hits the dirt right up to a heavy freeze, they think I am stretching the truth. But I am absolutely not. It is basically nature's own non-stop color machine. The blooms are these flawless little yellow stars, roughly the size of a coin, packing the plant so tightly you can hardly spot the wispy thread-like leaves hiding underneath. It looks like somebody tossed a handful of pure sunshine right into your flower bed. And the cool thing about those tiny, fine leaves is that they give off a soft, fluffy vibe that looks incredible next to bigger, chunkier plants. But what really gets me pumped about Coreopsis is that it asks for almost zero work. While other flowers are begging for you to snip their dead heads, demanding special plant food, and needing daily babysitting, this one just pumps out petals all on its own. The old blooms drop off nice and neat, clearing space for fresh ones without you lifting a single finger. I put my first one in the ground right in the middle of August, figuring I might get a couple of weeks of color before the cold hit. Well, it didn't just bloom straight into December. It popped back up the following spring double the size and with even more flowers. That is when I knew I had stumbled onto something awesome. A plant that actually pays you back for planting it late by giving you extra days of color. It handles dry spells like a total champ, too. I have completely forgotten to give it a drink for weeks during a scorcher, and it just kept on shining like nothing was wrong. It is the perfect pick for anybody wanting a massive payoff with almost no sweat. Let's talk about number 5. Fall blooming asters. When everyone else is packing up their tools, say hello to these beauties. They are about to completely flip the script on how you handle autumn yard work. When I stuck my first asters in the dirt late in August a few years back, I figured I was just tossing in a quick splash of late color. Instead, I got a complete yard makeover that left my neighbors totally speechless. Just picture stepping out your back door in early October. Every other yard on the street is looking crispy and exhausted, but your space is just bursting with huge clouds of little pink, purple, or white blooms. That is the true magic of fall asters. These native beauties do not just happen to flower in the fall. They save their absolute best performance for when the air starts getting chilly. The blossoms might be tiny on their own, but they show up in such massive groups that they look like colorful mists hovering right above the green leaves. And here is what really makes me happy. They are an absolute lifesaver for traveling butterflies. I have literally counted over 20 monarchs hanging out on just one aster bush during their peak moving season. It is like throwing a massive butterfly party right in your own grass. But here is the trick most folks miss. Asters actually love being put in the ground late in the summer. The ones you plant in the spring usually grow too tall and flop over. But the ones you plant in August stay tight, strong, and perfectly on schedule for their big autumn show. The crisp fall air makes their colors pop so much that a camera cannot even capture how bright they are. What I appreciate the most is how steady they are. Once they are in, they basically act like an alarm clock. Every September, right on the dot, the little buds show up. By October, you are treated to a jaw-dropping display that sticks around for weeks, sometimes pushing into November if the hard freeze holds off. Number 6 brings us to Autumn Joy Sedum, the ultimate shapeshifter of the plant world. This one is pure gardening magic. If you have not put sedums in your dirt yet, you are about to see exactly why they are known as the chameleons of the yard. This one single plant hands you 3 totally unique looks as the year goes by, and every phase is prettier than the last. It kicks off in the spring and summer looking like beautiful jade green cabbage heads. The leaves are thick and hold water, looking perfectly smooth and sculpted. Then, as summer winds down, something amazing takes place. Flat bunches of flowers pop up. They start off as light green little knobs, then slowly shift to pink, then a deep rose, and finally a rich dark red as the autumn weather settles in. It is like catching a super slow-motion fireworks show right out your window. I still recall watching this happen for the first time. I honestly thought the plant was sick because it kept shifting its shades. Then it hit me that I was watching one of the coolest color changes in nature. By late October, those flower tops turn into this deep, rusty ruby color that shines in the fall sun. But what makes Autumn Joy such a perfect fit for a late planting is that you basically cannot kill it. Dry weather? It laughs at it. Bad dirt? It actually prefers it. Ignoring it? That is when it does its best. Because they are thick and fleshy, they hold water right inside their leaves. It is like they come with their own built-in watering can. And let me tell you about the bees. When this sedum opens up in September and October, it turns into a massive magnet for bugs. Right when most other blooms are shutting down for the year, your sedums will be completely buzzing with life. I have seen dozens of different bee types all over one plant, rushing to grab a snack before the snow flies. Best of all, those flower heads still look fantastic even after they dry out. They turn a neat rusty bronze that looks great sticking out of the winter snow, and they are awesome to cut and bring inside. At number 7, we have the Japanese anemone. It looks as fragile as thin tissue paper, but it is tough as nails. This plant is definitely going to be your next big obsession. When folks catch sight of these soft, papery blooms bobbing in the breeze, they automatically think they are looking at some picky, delicate flower. But Japanese anemones are living proof that looks can seriously fool you. These stunners are incredible fighters. The blooms are just out of this world, with single or double layers of pink or white petals that look like they are floating over the dark leaves just like butterflies. Every single petal looks like it was snipped out of the finest paper you can find. You would swear a stiff wind would tear them right apart. But these plants laugh off the wind, the rain, and even a surprise early freeze. They are the tough, classy survivors of the flower bed. What makes them so perfect for planting later in the year is their internal clock. While all the other flowers are packing up their act, the anemones are just getting out of bed. They start opening up around the end of August and keep on going straight through October, and sometimes even stretch right into November. It feels like getting a bonus spring season right when everything else is getting ready to hibernate. I stuck my first ones in a shady corner where absolutely nothing else wanted to grow. I was really doubting it would work. How could a plant that looks so soft handle a spot that made tough plants quit? But by year 2, I had this amazing patch throwing out hundreds of blooms from late summer deep into the fall. They found their perfect home and paid me back big time. Here is the part that really wowed me. They actually like having a bit of shade, which makes them the perfect fix for those tough, tricky corners where you can't get anything else to flower. Patios facing north, spots tucked under big trees, places that get morning light but afternoon shadows. Anemones eat those spots up and bloom beautifully right where sun lovers would just give up and die. The way they sway in the wind is completely hypnotizing. On a calm autumn afternoon, just watching them dance around is honestly like meditation. Every bloom sways on its own, adding this amazing burst of movement and life right when the rest of the yard is falling asleep. Moving on to number 8, let's talk about the blue mist shrub, or Caryopteris. This bush is going to introduce a pop of color to your autumn landscape that you probably assumed was impossible. When the majority of fall plants are flaunting their warm oranges, reds, and yellows, Caryopteris shows up wearing shocking electric blue, and trust me, it completely steals the show. The very first time I caught this blooming, I actually hit the brakes, pulled over, and knocked on a random person's front door just to find out what it was. The homeowner chuckled and mentioned she gets asked that constantly. We aren't just talking about regular blue petals here. These are vibrant, almost neon clusters that appear to radiate light against their silver-green leaves. It looks as if somebody grabbed chunks of a clear summer sky and dropped them into your yard. But here is the reason it is so fantastic for pots and late-season digging. It stays nice and tight, and it flowers on fresh growth. That means you can drop it in the soil during August and still get a massive explosion of color in September and October. Unlike other bushes that demand a whole year to settle in before doing much, the blue mist shrub pays you back right away, and the butterflies absolutely lose their minds over it. I have genuinely never witnessed anything pull in winged visitors quite like a fully blooming Caryopteris. On a sunny September afternoon, mine looks like it is covered in breathing jewels. You will see swallowtails, monarchs, and countless tiny butterflies all fighting for a spot on those bright blue blooms. Plus, the smell is incredible. Just brushing past the leaves lets out this fantastic earthy aroma that sits right between lavender and mint. It is basically outdoor aromatherapy. I purposely stick these next to my patio chairs so I can take in that sweet smell during crisp autumn evenings. The craziest part is how well it handles a drought and intense heat once it takes root. When everything else is panting in the late summer sun, this shrub just keeps churning out those striking blue blossoms. It honestly feels like it was custom built for tough yards. At number 9, we have Gaura, widely known as whirling butterflies. This plant is literally magic in motion. The first time I spotted this at a neighbor's house, I stood there completely frozen for 10 minutes, just watching the show. The thin stems bob with the lightest puff of wind, and those little pink or white petals flutter around exactly like a swarm of butterflies that simply refuse to land. What makes Gaura a flawless choice for a late summer start is how much it loves the heat and its incredible blooming timeline. This flower actually hits its stride as the thermometer climbs. While other plants are melting in the harsh August sun, Gaura is busy growing thicker stems, pushing out more petals, and giving your yard this breezy, light texture that adds action to any flower bed. The single blooms are pretty tiny, about the size of your thumbnail, but they show up in such crazy numbers that they form a massive floating cloud. Every flower features 4 petals and long, wispy centers that dance whenever the air moves. It operates a lot like nature's wind chimes, only instead of making noise, it gives you this endless, mesmerizing sway that wakes up the whole yard. I put my first batch in the ground on the 20th of August a few years back, assuming I would be lucky to get 4 weeks of color before the freeze. Instead, I got 3 straight months of relentless blooms, right from planting day all the way through November. Even after a light frost rolled through and blackened my other plants, my Gaura kept tossing out fresh flowers like it was no big deal. The thing that really blows my mind is how tough it is once the roots take hold. Dry spells? Handled. Terrible dirt? It loves it. Scorching heat? It thrives. Heavy winds? The bendy stems just dance a little faster. It is basically the most durable star in your yard, constantly ready to put on a performance. And the way it pairs with other flowers is straight up enchanting. I love using it as a see-through screen in front of heavier blooms. The bold colors of asters or coneflowers peek right through those waving Gaura stems, creating a professional-looking depth that elevates the whole space. Number 10 is the blanket flower, sometimes called Gaillardia. This one drags the cozy warmth of a summer sunset straight into your autumn landscape. When I tell friends that a few of my blanket flowers are still pushing out petals in December, they stare at me like I am spinning a tall tale. But these tough native plants are the undisputed kings of a long blooming season, especially if you get them in the ground late in the summer. The blossoms themselves are absolute showstoppers. Just picture a sunset trapped inside a flower. You get dark, rich reds bleeding out into vivid yellows, oranges, and even deep burgundy, all wrapped up in one single bloom. Every petal looks like it was carefully hand-painted. With hues that deep and fiery, they almost look like they are throwing off heat. On a brisk October morning when the rest of the yard looks a bit sleepy, blanket flowers shine like tiny little campfires scattered across the dirt. What makes Gaillardia a winner for a late planting is how rugged it is, along with its love for cooler soil on its roots. When you dig them in during the sweltering heat of August, they settle in fast but don't panic about flowering right away. Instead, they focus on building a bulletproof root system, gearing up for the massive autumn show around the corner. I will never forget my first go-around with these. I shoved them into what I assumed was the worst spot possible. Dry, hot, and full of awful dirt where nothing else survived. I figured if they lived, great, and if they died, I didn't lose much. What happened next completely floored me. Not only did they live, but they went absolutely crazy. The worse the dirt got, the harder they worked. Here is the funny secret about blanket flowers. They actually like having a hard time. If you give them rich soil and plenty of water, they get completely lazy, giving you tons of leaves but hardly any flowers. But stick them in a tough spot, and they fight back by blooming like crazy. It is like they are trying to pump out as many seeds as possible just to survive, which means a ton of extra color for you. Their ability to handle a drought is famous. I have completely ignored mine for 6 straight weeks during summer scorchers, and they never stopped shining. While my other plants were ditching their leaves and going to sleep, my Gaillardia acted like it was a perfect 75 degrees. It is the ultimate choice for folks with no free time or anyone who spends a lot of time out of town. Coming in at number 11, we have the toad lily. This specific plant will entirely rewire your brain regarding what a shady autumn garden can look like. When folks spot these wild, speckled blossoms opening up in September and October, they are shocked that a plant this exotic can actually survive a winter outside. The flowers themselves are just out of this world. They resemble tiny little orchids covered in complex, delicate spots of purple and white. Every single bloom is its own masterpiece, featuring 6 petals dusted with the finest purple freckles over a bright white canvas. And the crazy thing is, the freckles are organized differently on every single flower, meaning no two are exactly alike. It feels like someone dropped a handful of living gems right into your darkest flower bed. What makes the toad lily a top-tier choice for planting right now is its blooming calendar and its love for the shadows. This is one of the rare perennials that actually performs better out of the sun, holding its breathtaking show back until the autumn months when most shade lovers have already called it quits. Stick them in the dirt in August, and by the time October rolls around, you will have a display that looks like it belongs inside a heated greenhouse. I dug my first ones into a spot where absolutely nothing wanted to grow. Heavy shade beneath massive trees where the dirt stays damp but never sees a single ray of sunshine. I really doubted anything would flower there, especially something this tropical looking. But those toad lilies proved me completely wrong. They grow these graceful, curved stems packed with oval leaves that look fantastic from spring to fall. Then, right as autumn kicks off, the magic starts. Little buds swell up all along the stems, and suddenly you are staring at dozens of these spectacular orchid-style flowers that keep opening up for weeks on end. Every single stem turns into a living bouquet. The thing that really wows me is how they get people talking. Everybody who walks by and sees them flowering demands to know what on earth they are looking at. The common name might not sound all that glamorous, but please don't let it fool you. These are deeply elegant, classy plants that inject a heavy dose of the exotic into any shaded yard. Our 12th and final plant is ornamental kale. Now, this one is probably going to catch you off guard. When I bring this option up, a lot of folks wrinkle their noses and say, "Wait, isn't that just a vegetable?" And they are completely right, which is exactly what makes it such a brilliant choice. Ornamental kale brings shades to your autumn landscape that you simply cannot get from standard flowers. We are talking about deep, rich purples, glowing pinks, bright, creamy whites, and bold greens, all packed into one single head. But here is the real magic. Those shades actually get brighter as the thermometer drops. A light freeze that completely ruins other plants only makes this kale look even more vibrant. The leaves look just like massive roses built out of ruffled fabric. Some types have smooth edges, while others are heavily textured and crinkled. By the time late October hits, a planter filled with this looks like it is stuffed with giant, frost-proof flowers. I started putting these in my autumn pots half a decade ago, and it entirely changed my fall decorating game. While the folks next door were ripping out their dead summer plants and staring at empty dirt, my containers were just hitting their absolute peak. Plus, here is a fantastic bonus. It is entirely edible. You can toss those bright purple leaves right into a salad for a gorgeous, healthy crunch. I have literally served my porch decorations at dinner parties, and people are always blown away that something so pretty tastes so good. It absolutely loves the cool weather, so if you plant it now, it will be perfectly settled in and ready to put on a show when the crisp air arrives, unlike spring-planted kale that just gives up and bolts in the summer sun. Now, before we finish up, let me hand over a few crucial rules I have picked up from years of late-season digging to make sure you succeed with these beauties. First up, and I cannot stress this enough, what goes inside your pots is everything. You absolutely must use a high-quality potting mix, never ordinary dirt straight from your yard. I learned this the hard way when I killed an entire pot of expensive flowers trying to save a few bucks on soil. Yard dirt turns into heavy concrete inside a container, locking up the moisture and drowning even the toughest roots. A good potting mix lets the water run right through while holding just enough wetness for the plant to drink. Also, make sure every single container has drainage holes. I do not care how gorgeous a pot is. If the water cannot escape, it is a death trap. Even plants that love the desert will rot if their feet stay wet. If you find a solid pot you just have to use, either drill some holes in the bottom or use it as a decorative sleeve to hide a cheap plastic pot that actually does drain. Next, let's talk about watering. Here is the trick most folks get wrong. You need to water them deeply, but don't do it as often. Just poke your finger down into the dirt. If the top inch feels dry to the touch, it is time for a drink. When you do turn the hose on, soak it slow and steady until you see water spilling out the bottom. This forces the roots to stretch down deep, which is exactly what they need to survive the winter snow and pop back up next spring. Late additions need steady moisture to get comfortable, but they do not want to sit in a puddle. Finally, let's look at your feeding strategy. Skip the high nitrogen fertilizers right now. Those just force the plant to push out weak, soft leaves that the cold weather will immediately destroy. Instead, grab a slow-release food or something that is low in nitrogen but high in phosphorus. This feeds the root system and helps the blooms, getting them perfectly locked in before the freeze. So, there you have it. 12 incredible perennials that prove the end of summer is not the end of your gardening journey. It is your second chance to make some magic. From the bright yellow faces of black-eyed Susans to the wild, exotic look of toad lilies, these picks will turn your yard into an autumn masterpiece your neighbors will talk about for years. Just think about it. While everyone else is walking away and settling for brown grass and empty pots, you could be stepping out into a space that looks even better in October than it did in July. These are your secret tools for keeping the yard alive well into the cold months. And remember, every single plant here returns bigger and stronger next year, meaning the work you put in today pays you back forever. You are planting future beauty, future fun, and future memories. Which of these 12 caught your eye the most? Are you ready to dive into a late-season planting session? I really want to hear all about it. Leave a comment down below and let me know which one you want to try, or share your own autumn planting stories. I read every single comment and absolutely love chatting with folks who refuse to quit when August hits. If this sparks some new ideas for your late summer yard, go ahead and smash that like button and share this with a buddy who thinks gardening stops in the fall. Let's show everyone that the best stuff happens when the rest of the neighborhood gives up. Make sure you subscribe and tap the notification bell too. We have a massive autumn series on the way, covering pot designs, winter prep, and planning for next year to keep your space looking amazing all year long. Until next time, keep digging, keep trying new things, and remember, out in the yard, just like in life, it is never too late to start growing something beautiful. Your future self will be so glad you planted today.